Okay, he's got his hand up. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Finn and I am Council's Manager of Governance, Risk and Performance. And on behalf of the CEO, I extend a warm welcome to the gallery here at the Yarrawonga Town Hall and those joining us via live stream for this afternoon's scheduled meeting of Council. Consistent with section 13.3 of our governance rules, Council officers have been authorised to record the public session of this meeting using appropriate recording devices. I now turn to the Chair for the prayer and the acknowledgement of traditional owners.
Thank you, Ms Finn. I'd ask people to rise whilst I read the prayer and acknowledgement of traditional owners. Almighty God, we humbly ask you to guide our deliberations for the welfare and benefit of the Moira Shire and its people whom we serve. Moira Shire Council acknowledges the Yorta Nation as the traditional owners of this land. We recognise the deep spiritual connection to land, waterways and community of the 8 clan groups of the Yorta Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Please be seated. A very warm welcome to everyone who has joined our scheduled meeting of the Moira Shire Council being held in the Yarrawonga Shire Hall. I do extend a very warm welcome to those members of the gallery who have joined us tonight and to acknowledge that we do have a number of people joining us via the live streaming services as well. So we extend a very warm welcome to you all. Item 4 on tonight's agenda is apologies and leave of absence. I understand there's no apologies for this evening. Are there any requests for leave of absence?
No, Chair.
Are there any matters of conflicts of interest to be disclosed in relation to matters on tonight's agenda? If not, we'll take it there are no matters to be declared as matters of interest. Item 6 on the agenda is the confirmation of minutes of our previous meeting, which was held on Wednesday, 27th of May, 2026. Is there a mover for this item?
Yes, I'd like to move that the minutes of the scheduled council meeting held on Wednesday, the 22nd of May, 2026, as presented, be adopted.
Can I just confirm 27th of May is the meeting?
27th of May, 2026.
Thank you. And I'm happy to second that motion. Do you wish to speak? Those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 7 on the agenda this evening is administrator addresses. And I'm very pleased to present my report covering the period from late May through to current day. It has been a particularly busy and rewarding time over the last month, and I've had the privilege of representing Moira Shire Council at a number of significant events and meetings across the Shire and beyond. On the 27th of May, I had the pleasure of attending the Municipal Association of Victoria's State Council meeting. The MAV State Council is an important forum for local government across Victoria. It brings together councils to debate and vote on policy positions, advocacy priorities and matters of significance to the local government sector. It was a valuable opportunity to represent Moira Shire and to hear what is happening across the state with councils and to contribute to the collective voice of local government on issues that affect all our communities. We commenced June by presiding over the 2026-27 budget submissions hearings. And this is always an important part of Council's budget process and one that we take very seriously. Hearing directly from community members, organisations and stakeholders about their priorities and needs is invaluable. And the submissions we receive will continue to inform Council's deliberations, including as we finalise the budget later in this meeting. On the 5th of June, Moira Shire hosted a meeting of the Murray Region Group of Councils at the Dania Centre in Barmah. These regional meetings of 6 councils along the Murray River are an important opportunity for councils with common interests to come together, share information and advocate collectively on the issues that matter most to our communities. On the 6th of June, I had the honour of attending the official naming ceremony of a netball court at the JC Lowe Oval in Yarrawonga as the Bridget Cassar Court. This is in recognition of Bridget's substantial contribution to netball and particularly to the Yarrawonga Football and Netball Club over many, many years. Events like this are a good reminder of the deep community spirit that exists across our shire. Throughout the month, I have attended 3 Blokes Brekkie events, one in Nathalia, one in Yarrawonga, and the last earlier this week in Newmerka. Men's health and well-being is something that I'm genuinely passionate about, and these events create exactly the kind of environment where people feel comfortable to talk in a relaxed environment. The turnout and engagement at all of these 3 events has been terrific, and I want to thank council staff and the organisers in each of the towns for their efforts in making these events such a success. On the 12th of June, I attended the announcement of a NAB, as in NAB Bank, Foundation Community Grant for the Cobram State Emergency Service. Our SES volunteers do extraordinary work, often in very difficult and dangerous conditions, and they do it selflessly for the benefit of our community. It was a privilege to be there to witness a grant of $20,000 being handed to the Cobram SES to enable the purchase of temporary flood levy infrastructure. Also on the 16th of June, I attended the Yarrawonga Aerodrome Stakeholders Barbecue Get-Together. The aerodrome is a really important asset for our shire, both economically and in terms of the services it supports, and it was great to meet with some of the key stakeholders on site who are invested in the aerodrome's future. I also recently attended a progress update on the transformation being undertaken by the Yarrawonga Mawala Tourism and Business Board. I congratulate the board on its endeavours to reposition the organisation as a destination and business development group. Council is the major funder of the Yarrawonga Mawala Tourism Board, and it is heartening to see the work now being undertaken by the board to benefit the Yarrawonga Mawala community. And yesterday, and finally, I met with Mr. Jim Judd and Mr. Bruce Pigden, representing the Alexandra Park Trust, to receive an updated deed relating to the funding for the proposed acquisition of the former Yarrawonga Primary School site. This is a significant matter before the council, and I do really want to thank the Alexandra Park Trust and particularly Jim and Bruce for their time and their commitment to working constructively with council on this important project. And we do look forward to progressing this matter further in the coming weeks. I'll now move to Administrator Benedica for your address.
Building on the Chair Administrator's report, I would like to highlight several additional community stakeholder and regional engagements that were undertaken during June. Earlier in the month, we both attended a training night at the Katunga Football Netball Club. Community sporting clubs play an important role in bringing people together, particularly in our smaller communities. We saw this as an opportunity to meet with club representatives, volunteers and participants and gain a better understanding of both the opportunities and challenges facing the club and its participants, as well as observe the considerable hive of activity on and off the field and courts. On the 2nd of June, Dr. Emerson and I participated in the annual Yanda Walk, which is held to commemorate National Reconciliation Week. The walk in Yarrawonga provided an opportunity to acknowledge and reflect on the cultural heritage of the region and to join community members in recognising the importance of connection to country, culture and community. Congratulations again to Auntie Molly as primary organiser in conjunction with Early Childhood Centres, Yarrawonga Health, Mulwala Community and Learning Centre, Yarrawonga Mulwala Community and Learning Centre and the Moira Shire. On the 3rd of June, we attended the official sod turning ceremony for the Yarrawonga Multisport Stadium. This milestone marks the commencement of a significant community infrastructure project that will benefit local sporting groups, schools, and the broader community for many years to come. This project has been many, many years in the making and is a testament to the dedication of the Yarrawonga Mulwala Net Basketball Association, local volunteers, community advocates, and the many partners who've worked tirelessly to bring the vision forward. Significant investment has been provided by the Australian Government through the Community Development Grants Program and the Victorian Local Sports Infrastructure Fund. On the 10th of June, Dr. Emerson and I attended the Love Our Lifestyle community gathering in Numurkah. The event brought together local businesses, community organisations and residents to build on the strengths of the community and discuss opportunities for the future. It was encouraging to see strong local participation. I also attended the regular quarterly board meeting of the Goulburn Murray Climate Alliance. The Alliance continues to play an important role in supporting councils across the region to respond to climate change, build resilience, and pursue opportunities associated with the transition to a lower emissions economy. The discussions focused on regional priorities, collaboration opportunities, and advocacy on matters affecting our communities. Last night, Dr. Emerson and I met with members of the Moira Youth Council. The Youth Council continues to provide valuable input into Council's decision-making and community planning. We regularly brief them on Council activities and considerations and ask for input and feedback. It's always encouraging to hear directly from young people about the issues that matter to them and their aspirations for the future of Moira Shire. This month's of engagements continue to reinforce the strength of our communities, the commitment of volunteers and community leaders, and the importance of maintaining strong relationships across the Shire and the broader region. I'd particularly like to continue to thank my fellow administrator, council staff, community organisations and volunteers for their ongoing contribution to the work of council and to the wellbeing of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Benedica. Can we now move to item 8 on tonight's agenda, and that is officer reports for determination. The first item, item 8.1, is the provision of insurance services, and I'll invite the Manager of Governance, Risk and Performance, Amanda Finn, to present this report.
Thank you, Chair Administrator Emerson. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider the recommendation to award contract C00326 provision of insurance services. Council has been operating under its existing insurance arrangements since June 2022. In line with good practice and sound governance, a formal market testing process was undertaken to ensure Council continues to receive comprehensive, cost-effective insurance coverage that best serves the organisation and our community. A request for tender was released in March and Council received 4 submissions from qualified insurance providers. Following a mandatory compliance assessment, 3 submissions progressed to the evaluation stage. The evaluation was conducted by a panel comprising officers from corporate performance and finance, with price, skills and resources, track record, methodology, timeframes, demonstrated sustained value and contribution to the local economy, all assessed as part of the process. Following a thorough and transparent evaluation, the tender evaluation panel determined that JLT Risk Solutions Proprietary Limited achieved the highest overall rating and represents best value for Council. The recommendation before Council tonight is to award the contract to JLT Risk Solutions Proprietary Limited for an initial 3-year period commencing 1 July 2026, with insurance coverage transitioning from the existing arrangements on the 31st of October 2026. The contract will include an option to extend for a further 2 years to a maximum of 5 years in total. It is also noted that this report contains 2 confidential attachments, the tender summary and tender evaluation, which have been provided to the administrators separately. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms Finn. I'm happy to move that Council number 1 award contract C003/26 provision of insurance services to JLT Risk Solutions Proprietary Limited for an initial period of 3 years commencing 1 July 2026 with an option to extend for a further 2-year period to a maximum of 5 years. And secondly, Note that Council's existing insurance coverage remains in force until 31 October 2026, and the new coverage will commence on 31 October 2026. And number 3, note that the anticipated expenditure for the initial coverage period will be prorated from an annualised moderated evaluation price of approximately $982,780 ex GST. And 4th, note that the contract rates for the remaining term will be subject to an annual renewal process and market review. And 5th, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or a delegate of the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate and finalise the contract terms. Is there a seconder for that motion?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Administrator Benedica. This is a very comprehensive report and one that really does set out a very comprehensive evaluation assessment. It is important, given that Council spends almost $1 million per year on securing its insurance arrangements, it is important that we do undertake a process of market testing to ensure that the insurance coverage is relevant and that we continue to receive value for money. The very comprehensive evaluation assessment that has been undertaken gives me very good confidence that we are selecting a provider of our insurance services that will provide value for money for the Council over the next 3 and potentially 5 years. So with that, I'm very happy to be supporting this motion tonight. Do you wish to speak as seconder?
Thank you, Chair. I'd also like to commend the comprehensive nature of the assessment and the report that was provided to us, and also to acknowledge that this is sound governance practice to be able to review in such a comprehensive way our expenditure on insurance services. I'm most happy to second the motion.
With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.2 on this evening's agenda is the Numurkah Kattunga Strathmerton Growth Corridor Plan, and I'd invite the Director of Sustainable Development, Mr. Brian Sword, to present this report.
Thank you, Chair Administrator Emerson. This report seeks Council's adoption of the Numurkah, Kattunga and Strathmerton Growth Corridor Plan, a strategic framework to guide long-term economic growth and land use outcomes across the corridor. Developed with the support of the Victorian Planning Authority, the plan is informed by detailed economic and land use analysis and 2 rounds of targeted community and stakeholder engagement. The corridor currently supports approximately 6,700 residents, 3,000 jobs, and generates $1.1 billion in annual economic output, underpinned by strong agriculture and manufacturing sectors. However, future growth is constrained by workforce shortages, limited housing supply, and changes in water entitlement settings. The Growth Corridor Plan responds to these challenges through a coordinated approach that includes planning policy reform, economic development initiatives, and a focused advocacy agenda. Key actions include supporting delivery of enabling infrastructure, improving livability and connectivity, facilitating tourism outcomes, and strengthening the role of the corridor within the Moira planning scheme. Target initiatives for Numurkah, Kattunga and Strathmerton further respond to local opportunities and challenges, including amenity improvements, infrastructure advocacy, and economic transition support. Adoption of the plan will position Council to proactively support the corridor's continued role as a significant regional food production hub while enhancing livability and investment attraction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sword. Is there a motion for this item tonight?
Yes, I'd like to move that Council 1 note the community feedback received on the draft Numurkah, Kattunga and Strathmerton Growth Corridor Plan, August 2025, as summarised in this report, and 2, adopt the Numurkah, Kattunga and Strathmerton Growth Corridor Plan as shown at Attachment 1.
And I'm happy to second that motion. Do you wish to speak as the mover of the motion?
This has been a comprehensive piece of work undertaken from the initial consultations in late 2024 through to the second round of consultations in August 2025 and through to several iterations of the report as we now see it. As mentioned by our director, it's a comprehensive plan that really starts to say what can we do to enable the growth that's happening along the corridor. I particularly wanted to note that there were call outs for additional items for Numurkah, Kattunga and Strathmerton, including investigating opportunities for amenity improvements to Lake Numurkah, making sure that the future industrial expansion land is appropriately classified. For Kattunga, continuing to advocate for sewer in the town, addressing the opportunities for temporary housing and local housing for workers, and looking at opportunities to connect the workers with the significant horticultural facilities at the edge of the township. And in Strathmerton, we know that this needs to support the adaptation for that town after the closure of Bega's operations and make sure that the attractiveness and amenity of the town is improved and maintained. It's a comprehensive report. We've had the pleasure of seeing it several times in its development, and I'd like to put that now.
Thank you, Administrator Bernardika. This is a very significant economic zone that has enormous potential, but it also has a number of challenges. And I think the plan that we have before us tonight really sets those out and does set a pathway for us to optimise the economic and social benefits of this really important economic zone for our shire and, in fact, for the broader region. With that, I will put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.3 is the Cobram Structure Plan Engagement Plan. And again, I would invite the Director of Sustainable Development to present this report.
Thank you, Chair Administrator. This report seeks Council's endorsement of the engagement plan for the Cobram Structure Plan and Urban Design Guidelines and approval to commence stakeholder and community engagement. Council has engaged Hanson Partnership to prepare a structure plan and urban design guidelines to guide Cobram's growth and development over the next 15 to 20 years. The engagement plan represents the first key step in this process and outlines a structured and inclusive approach to consultation. The engagement program includes early and ongoing consultation with key stakeholders and 2 formal rounds of community engagement. These will be supported by a mix of in-person and online sessions, targeted workshops, and a range of communication channels to maximise participation and awareness. Endorsing the engagement plan will enable Council to commence a comprehensive engagement process to inform the development of a shared vision for Cobram, ensuring future growth is well planned and aligned with community aspirations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sword. I'm happy to move that Council number 1 note the Cobram Structure Plan and Urban Design Guidelines Engagement Plan as shown at Attachment 1, and secondly, authorise stakeholder and community engagement to commence in accordance with the engagement plan as shown in Attachment 1. Is there a seconder for that motion?
Yes, I second that motion.
Thank you, Administrator Bernardika. It has been recognised on a number of occasions now that the future growth and development of Cobram would benefit from a more up-to-date and contemporary structure plan and urban design guidelines. There are a number of pressures which are being experienced in the future growth of Cobram, and it is important that we undertake a very comprehensive approach to developing a 15 to 20-year plan known as a structure plan and accompanying urban design guidelines. One of the most important things, though, in developing this key planning instrument is that we do fully and effectively consult with the local community. And this plan tonight really sets out a very comprehensive approach to engagement and consultation as we work up the ultimate structure plan and urban design guidelines for Cobram. Administrator Bernardika, do you wish to speak as seconder of the motion?
In speaking to second the motion, I would really strongly encourage the wider community to get involved with this engagement. It's an engagement plan that sets out the key stakeholders, including the wider community, key landholders, and a number of agencies. The opportunities are there to be engaged and to have a say and make sure that we get the right results for Cobram for the long-term future.
With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour, the motion is carried. Item 8.4 is review of council law service recognition policy. And I'd again invite the Manager of Governance, Risk and Performance, Amanda Finn, to present this report.
Thank you, Chair Administrator Emerson. The purpose of this report is to present the revised Councillor Service Recognition Policy. This policy was last adopted by Council on the 25th of May 2022 and has now come due for its scheduled review. It ensures that service milestones for elected representatives are formally and meaningfully acknowledged in the forms of recognition as detailed within the policy. The review has determined that only minimal changes are required. The revised policy retains the core intent of the existing policy whilst introducing amendments that strengthen clarity, broaden equity, and align with Council's updated policy template. It also explicitly notes that the policy does not apply during the period Council is under administration. There are no immediate budget implications arising from this review, as the policy will not be operationalised until the return of elected councillors in 2028. Adopting the policy now ensures that it is current and ready to take effect at that time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Finn. Is there a motion for this item tonight?
I move that Council adopt the revised Councillor Service Recognition Policy as included in Attachment 1.
And I'm happy to second that motion. Do you wish to speak as the mover?
This, again, is part of our sound, regular governance practice of reviewing policies and ensuring that they're up to date. The policy provides for service recognition, councillor service awards at various milestone years, and presentation of a plaque to councillors who reach 20 years of cumulative service with Moira Shire Council. It's a very straightforward policy, but one that tidies up what we're doing.
Thank you, Administrator Benedika. With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour, the motion is carried. Item 8.5 is the administration of external grants policy. And again, I would invite Ms Amanda Finn to present this report.
Thank you, Chair Administrator Emerson. The purpose of this report is to present the new Administration of External Grants policy. To provide some context, grant funding is a significant and vital source of revenue for Moira Shire Council, representing approximately 32% of Council's total revenue. This funding enables the delivery of services, programs, and capital infrastructure that may otherwise be beyond Council's immediate financial capacity. Given the scale and importance of this funding stream, strong governance around how we identify, assess, administer, and report on grants is essential. Until now, Council has not had a formal adopted policy governing the administration of external grants. The development of a dedicated policy presents a valuable opportunity to strengthen consistency in grant management practices, enhance clarity around approval authorities, and further reinforce the effectiveness of compliance and acquittal processes. The development of this policy was informed by internal audit findings, contemporary local government practice, Council's project management framework, and the financial sustainability principles set out in Council's Financial Plan 2025 to 2035. Adopting this policy represents an important step in strengthening Council's financial controls and risk management. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Finn. I'm happy to move that Council adopt the administration of external grants policy as included in Attachment 1. Is there a seconder for that motion?
Second that motion.
It is important that we do have a well-developed and rigorous approach to the management of external grant funding. As Ms Finn has identified, external grant funding is a significant source of funding for Council. It can bring substantial benefits when we attract external funding to support Council's activities, operations, and particularly major projects. But in securing external funding, it is often associated with some very stringent compliance obligations. It is important, therefore, that we do adopt this new policy to ensure from a governance and probity and risk perspective that when we are entering into seeking funds from and then entering into external grant sources, that we're doing it in a very structured and rigorous way that ensures that we optimise our ability to attract external funding, but also minimise our risks. So I'm very pleased that the administration has seen the opportunity here to bring forward a new policy, one which I think presents the council in a very strong governance environment to manage the way we attract and then acquit external grant funding in the future. So I'm very pleased to be supporting this motion tonight. Do you wish to speak as a seconder?
This is a document that lays out the principles by which council can apply for grants. So there are no surprises in the future. But it also talks about things like our auspicing arrangements for incorporated and unincorporated groups. Whenever council acts as an auspice body for community organisations, it assumes the full legal and financial accountability for those grant funds. So it was important to us to have very clear guidelines against the management of those funds and to ensure that we have those sound relationships for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Benedika. With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.6 is Financial Reserves Policy. And again, I would invite Ms Amanda Finn to present this report.
Thank you, Chair Administrator Emerson. The purpose of this report is to present a new financial reserves policy together with a recommendation to establish 3 new discretionary reserves. Council maintains financial reserves to meet statutory obligations, fund future expenditures in a planned and orderly manner, and support the long-term financial sustainability of the organisation. The introduction of this policy will enhance consistency in reserve management practices, ensure reserves are appropriately funded and cash-backed, and support greater transparency in reporting to Council and the community. The proposed financial reserves policy has been developed to address these opportunities by establishing clear principles governing the creation of both statutory and discretionary reserves, the authorisation of transfers to and from reserves, cash backing requirements, and reporting obligations. The policy aligns with the Local Government Act 2020 and applicable financial reporting standards, reinforcing sound financial governance. Along with adopting the policy, Council is asked to resolve to establish 3 new discretionary reserves as detailed in the report. These are important steps in strengthening Council's financial governance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Finn. Is there a motion for this item tonight?
Yes, I'd like to move that Council, number 1, adopt the financial reserves policy as included in attachment 1, and 2, authorise the establishment of the following discretionary reserves. A digital transformation reserve, which is a temporary reserve with the closure date by June 30, 2030. B, a landfill rehabilitation and aftercare reserve. And C, an unspent grants reserve.
I'm happy to second that motion. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
As pointed out by Ms Finn, we have 2 sorts of reserves: statutory reserves, ones that are required, and discretionary reserves, ones that we choose to put into place. This is prudent management of our multi-year commitments. In this case, the digital transformation reserve is temporary only, but will help us undertake our significant digital transformation program. And that includes upgrades, digital investment, and technology-enabled service improvements. But it is multi-year and we need to fund those multiple years. The landfill rehabilitation and aftercare reserve allows us to put those funds away to meet our commitments for the future, and particularly our aftercare commitments and our environmental obligations for rehabilitation. And the unspent grants reserve is where we have grants that come into us in one financial year, but we've not completed the related program or financial expenditure by June the 30th. That means that we can put it into this reserve, the unspent grants reserve, and draw down on it as required in the future financial years. I think this is prudent management of our multi-year commitments.
Thank you, Administrator Benedika. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.7 is compliance and enforcement policy, and I would invite Mr. Brian Sword to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. This report recommends Council adopt the compliance and enforcement policy and revoke the existing swimming pool and spa safety barriers policy. The draft compliance and enforcement policy was endorsed for community engagement in December 2025, with no submissions received during the exhibition period. The policy provides a clear and consistent framework for how Council administers and enforces a broad range of regulatory responsibilities, including planning, building, public health, environmental protection, and local laws. The policy establishes a guiding principles of fairness, proportionality, transparency, and procedural fairness, supported by a risk-based and graduated approach to enforcement. It also strengthens coordination with other regulators, improves monitoring and reporting, and ensures staff are appropriately trained to deliver consistent compliance outcomes. It is also recommended that Council revoke the swimming pool and spa safety barriers policy, as current legislative requirements under the building regulations now provide comprehensive and enforceable standards, making the existing policy redundant. Adoption of the compliance and enforcement policy will support consistent, transparent, and accountable regulatory practices, strengthening community confidence in Council's decision-making and enforcement activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sword. I'm happy to move that Council number 1 adopt the draft compliance and enforcement policy as included in attachment 1, and secondly, revoke the swimming pool and spa safety barriers policy as shown at attachment 2. Is there a seconder for that motion?
I second that motion.
Again, this is an important part of our overall strengthening of governance approach. Council has various responsibilities, statutory responsibilities for compliance and enforcement, and it is really important that we have a structured approach to how we apply our compliance and enforcement activities. I'm really pleased to see in the policy that there is a graduated approach to compliance and enforcement, and it really starts with education. And it's important that in having an approach which promotes fairness and consistency, that we really do have a well articulated graduated approach so that staff are very aware and familiar with how we start enforcement, but ultimately where we can apply the strongest levels of enforcement where that is required on behalf of the community as well. The revoking of the swimming pool and spa safety barriers policy, as Mr. Sword has articulated, this policy is now redundant, and it is an opportunity when we are adopting the broader compliance and enforcement policy that we take the opportunity to revoke what is now a redundant policy of the Council. Administrator Benedika, would you like to speak as the seconder of the motion?
Yes, very briefly, I particularly like in the policy that just that, as we talked about the proportionality, but there's very clear guidelines about our principles of enforcement, and that the seriousness of the nature of non-compliance is taken into account, but it's also proportional to the non-compliance. And that means that any enforcement action needs to think about the seriousness of the contravention, that level of harm arising, and the persistent or deliberate nature. So proportionality, consistency, and transparency, as pointed out by the Director, are a key part of this policy. And similarly, the revocation of the swimming pool and spa safety barriers policy is really good tidying up.
With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.8 on this evening's agenda is the lease and licence policy implementation update. And I would invite the Director of Infrastructure, Rachel Gadd, to present this report.
Thank you, Chair Administrator Emerson. This report provides information on the implementation of the lease and licence policy, including an update on lease agreements for bowling clubs, senior citizens groups, the Numurkah Holiday Park, the Cobram Motocross Club, the Aero Club and Cobram Lions Club. All of these groups occupy council-managed facilities currently. Formalising these lease arrangements for these groups will strengthen council's governance of these community assets and ensure security of tenure, and also outlines clear responsibilities for each party. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Gadd. Is there a motion for this item tonight?
Yes, I'd like to move that council, number one, note the progress on the implementation of the lease and licence policy and updates provided in this report. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to finalise and execute any and all outstanding matters in regard to the lease arrangement with Numurkah Caravan Park, including A, acknowledging the one submission received in support of the lease, received pursuant to the public notice process initiated by the Resolution of Council on the 23rd of August 2023 in relation to the Numurkah Caravan Park, and B, complete the assignment of this lease under delegation.
And I'm happy to second that motion. Do you wish to speak as the mover of the motion?
Yes, I do wish to acknowledge that since we endorsed the lease and licence policy in November 26, 2025, that things have been moving quite nicely to be able to get this tidy up going on. There is a phased approach that's been required for the implementation of that policy, and there were many legacy arrangements that needed to be taken into account. By accepting this recommendation, if we choose to tonight, we're actually tidying things up. I also need to acknowledge the considerable amount of work that's been undertaken in negotiating and navigating these lease arrangements with all the parties. Thank you.
With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.9 is the Cobram Scott Pavilion Concept Plan endorsement, and I would invite the Director of Infrastructure, Rachel Gadd, to again present this report.
Thank you, Chair Administrator Emerson. So this report asks Council to consider the final layout design of the Cobram Scott Reserve Pavilion. The design shows a proposed new building to replace the existing pavilion at the Cobram Scott Reserve, which is at end of life and is no longer really fit for purpose for the current and future community uses. The design delivers a contemporary, fully accessible community sports facility to regional standards. The report asks that the design in principle is endorsed and that Council's financial commitment is confirmed. I'd just like to highlight that this does not commit Council to the construction phase, which is contingent on significant amount of external funding, but it does position Council to act quickly when funding becomes available. The key implications of this decision are that the project is grant funding dependent, with Council committing up to $1.75 million up until the 30th of June 2028 to see this project come to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Gadd. I'm happy to move that Council, number one, endorse in principle the Cobram Scott Reserve Pavilion concept design shown at attachment 1. Number 2, note the endorsed concept will be used as the basis for schematic design development. Number 3, note that further work will be undertaken in consultation with the Cobram Football Netball Club and Scott Reserve Community Asset Committee to ensure the estimated project cost is aligned with the anticipated budget of $7 million via a value management and design modification process. Number 4, delegate final approval of the concept plan and schematic design to the Chief Executive Officer once the value and design management processes have concluded. 5th, reaffirm Council's financial commitment to the project as per the principles in Council's 10-year financial strategy equating to 25% of the total project cost, which is estimated at $1.75 million, with the remaining project funds to be secured via external sources. And 6, note that if external grants are not secured by 30 June 2028, then an alternative solution, including refurbishment of the existing structures, may need to be pursued. Is there a seconder for that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Administrator Benedica. The Scott Reserve Pavilion in Cobram is past its use-by date. It is substandard when compared to contemporary design and operating facilities. Whilst we don't have $7 million to build a new pavilion at Scott Reserve now, what we are doing here is advancing the preliminary work, the design, right through to schematic design, to ensure that when external funding does become available, that this project is shovel ready. Many projects often miss out on funding because they're not ready to go. And what we're doing here is making a commitment that we will advance the design of a proposed new pavilion at Cobram to be absolutely shovel ready, so that if external funding does become available, hopefully we can be at the head of the queue. We are committing, in accordance with the principles in our 10-year financial plan, we are committing up to 25% of the total project cost, which is estimated at $1.75 million. Again, it is really important to enable these types of projects to proceed, that we do have a firm commitment. And this resolution tonight, if it's carried, does enable that. As Ms. Gadd has said, this resolution tonight is not a resolution to commence construction. It's a resolution to advance the schematic design to enable us to be ready to apply for external funds to hopefully deliver this project in the future. Do you wish to speak as the seconder of this motion?
In addition to the comments you've just made, I'd like to reinforce that we think this is one of the highest priorities for the Shire, and it's been one of our key messages that we've been putting in our 2026 Victorian state election campaign, as we've been talking to each of the parties who are going for election. We've also spoken to the current representatives that we have in both the lower house and the upper house and advocated very much for this. As mentioned before, if a project is not shovel ready, then it can be overlooked in the immediacy of things like an election campaign. We're positioning the Cobram Pavilion very well, Cobram Scott Reserve Pavilion very well to be attractive to obtain those election commitments.
With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.10 is the Disaster Ready Fund Generator Ready Project and Barmah Flood Resilience Project Phase 1. And I would invite the Director of Sustainable Development, Mr. Brian Sword, to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks council endorsement to submit 2 applications to round 4 of the Australian Government's Disaster Ready Fund. The Disaster Ready Fund supports projects that strengthen community resilience and reduce disaster risk. The 2 proposed projects respond directly to identified vulnerabilities within Moira Shire and align with Council's emergency management priorities and recent post-event recovery actions. The first project will deliver critical backup power infrastructure at 7 emergency relief centres, cool spaces and coordination facilities across the Shire. This responds to identified during the January 2026 extreme heat and fire event, where power outage is exposed to reliance on grid electricity and limited council's ability to support the community during the emergency event. The second project will enhance flood resilience in Barmah by upgrading key culverts with flap valves and penstock systems. This will reduce the risk of floodwater entering the levee-protected township, addressing vulnerabilities highlighted during the 2022 flood event and subsequent community engagement. Both projects are ready for delivery, with a combined value of $450,000 and a proposed 50-50 funding partnership with DRF. Endorsing these applications will position Council to secure external funding to deliver priority resilience infrastructure, reducing disaster risk, improving emergency response capability, and strengthening community safety across the Shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sword. Is there a motion for this item?
Yes, Chair, I'd move. Number 1, Council endorse the submission of 2 Disaster Ready Fund DRF Round 4 2026-2027 applications to Emergency Management Victoria as detailed in the body of this report, being application number DRFV R4019, Generator Ready Emergency Facility Resilience Project, and application number DRFV R4028, Barmer Flood Resilience Project, Phase 1 Culvert and Drainage Infrastructure Upgrade. Number 2, note that subject to successful grant approval, a council co-contribution of 50% in the amount of $125,000 of the total project value will be required for the Generator Ready Emergency Facility Resilience Project. And 3, note that, subject to successful grant approval, a council co-contribution of 50%, $100,000 of the total project value will be required for the Barmer Flood Resilience Project, Phase 1 Culvert and Drainage Infrastructure Upgrade.
And I'm happy to second that motion. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Both of these projects have been considerably enhanced by really taking into account what's happened in previous events in our Shire. The first, in terms of the Generator Ready Emergency Facility Resilience Project, is exactly that, to enable us to be able to continue the operations of our emergency centres, relief centres and cool spaces when there is a power outage, which is quite a common occurrence during fire and other disasters. The post-event assessment really pointed out that we had a vulnerability of a single point failure, and it's quite good to see we're trying to address that. The Barmer Flood Resilience Project has been subject to community consultation for some period of time, and I'm really pleased to see it in here. It's starting to recognise that we need external funding to help us advance the safety and the culvert and drainage infrastructure upgrades. Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Benedica. These are both really important projects for our overall community resilience, and I'm very happy to be supporting this motion for us to seek external funding for both these projects. With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour, the motion is carried. Item 8.11 is Committee of Council Minutes of the 2nd of June 2026. I'd invite Amanda Finn to present this report.
Thank you, Chair Administrator Emerson. The purpose of this report is to present the minutes of the Committee of Council meeting held on the 2nd of June 2026. A Committee of Council was established by resolution on the 6th of May 2026 for the purpose of hearing public submissions on the draft annual budget. The community engagement period was conducted from the 7th through to the 29th of May in accordance with Council's community engagement policy. During this period, Council received 3 written submissions from members of the community. These submissions were considered at the Committee of Council meeting held on Tuesday, the 2nd of June. The submissions raised matters across the range of topics, including infrastructure improvements, pedestrian safety, and community sporting facilities. Each submission has been given due consideration, and formal responses from Council officers have been incorporated into the separate budget endorsement report, also before Council this evening. This report seeks Council's acknowledgement of the feedback received and the tabling of the Committee of Council minutes. Thank you to those who took the time to make a submission to contribute to the budget development process. Community input is invaluable in shaping the services and infrastructure we deliver for our residents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Finn. I'm happy to move that Council, number one, note the feedback received during the community engagement process for the draft annual budget 2026-27 and thank the submitters for their submissions. And number two, note the minutes of the Committee of Council meeting convened to hear submissions received on the draft annual budget 2026-27 held on Tuesday, 2 June 2026, as shown in attachment 1. Is there a seconder for that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Administrator Bernard. This report is relatively self-explanatory, but can I also thank the three submitters who provided their submissions to the draft 26-27 budget, and particularly to thank the Numurkah Bowls Club representatives who took the opportunity to present and expand on their submission in person to our Committee of Council meeting held on the 2nd of June. The outcome of hearing the budget submissions is reflected later in the item that we will be considering tonight for the adoption of the budget. Do you wish to speak as seconder?
Just to endorse my thanks to those who've taken the time to read through the budget and make these submissions. It is a really important part of our process to hear from community members. So thank you again.
With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.12 on this evening's agenda is the 2026-2027 annual budget, and I would invite the Manager of Governance, Risk and Performance, Ms Amanda Finn, to present this report.
Thank you, Chair Administrator Emerson. The purpose of this report is to present the 2026-2027 annual budget, prepared in accordance with Section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020. The consideration of the annual budget also includes a number of other key financial matters, including the declaration of rates and charges for the financial year, including a general rate, municipal charge, environmental charge, and curbside waste collection service charges. The declaration of fees and charges to be applied in respect of various goods and services during the 2026-27 financial year. The authorisation of borrowings to authorise the CEO to enter into loan agreements on behalf of Moira Shire Council for any new borrowings approved by the Treasurer of Victoria and included in the 2026-27 annual budget. And also the loan execution authority to authorise the Chief Financial Officer to act as a dual signatory with the CEO on any required loan documentation provided by the Treasury Corporation of Victoria to execute the loan agreements. The key objectives of the 2026-2027 annual budget include funding the strategic initiatives that are aligned with the community's priorities as detailed within the Moira 2045 Community Vision and Council Plan 2025 to 2029. Demonstrating financial restraint in recognition of the ongoing cost of living pressures being experienced by communities, delivering long-awaited major community projects, and maintaining important services for the community through a sustainable delivery model. The community were invited to provide feedback on the draft budget during May when Council conducted a comprehensive engagement program, including public information sessions held in the 4 major towns. 3 formal submissions were received during the consultation period relating to the Numurkah Bowls Club synthetic green, a walking path lighting in Cobram, and drainage and pedestrian works in Nathalia. Each submission has been carefully considered and recommended responses to each submitter are included in attachment 2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Finn. Is there a motion for this matter tonight?
Yes, I will move that Council, number 1, approve the recommended responses to be provided to each submitter of a formal submission on the draft 2026-27 annual budget as detailed in attachment 2 of this report. Number 2, adopt the 2026-2027 annual budget as presented in attachment 1 as the final adopted budget of the Moira Shire Council for the 2026-2027 financial year, prepared in accordance with Section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020. 3, declare the rates and charges detailed in Section 7.1.1 of the final 2026-2027 annual budget, attachment 1, including a general rate, municipal charge, environmental charge, and curbside waste collection service charges. 4, declare and fix the fees and charges detailed in Section 9 of the final 2026-2027 annual budget report, attachment 1, to be charged in respect to various goods and services during the 2026-2027 financial year. 5, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to enter into loan agreement or agreements on behalf of Moira Shire Council for any new borrowings approved by the Treasurer of Victoria and that are included in Council's 2026-2027 annual budget. And 6, authorise the Chief Financial Officer to be a dual signatory with the Chief Executive Officer on any required loan documentation provided by the Treasury Corporation of Victoria to execute the loan agreements referred to in Recommendation 5 above.
And I'm happy to second that motion. Do you wish to speak as the mover of the motion?
I certainly wish to speak as a mover of the motion. This is one of the most important documents that we consider and adopt every year. As mentioned before, we work with a 10-year community direction, the larger vision, the picture of where we want to be within 10 years, and that's direction given to us by community. Under that, every 4 years, we adopt our 4-year council plan, and then within that, we do our annual plan, and this annual budget is the mechanism to make those things come to fruition. This budget has a total operating revenue of $90.8 million, the total operating expenditure of $82.9 million, and a total capital budget of $33.56 million. As mentioned before in previous items, we've got a dependency on rates and charges and state and federal grants. About 57% of our total revenue, as outlined in this budget, will come from rates and charges, and state and federal grants in this budget will total 34%. In this budget, we've got a surplus forecast for the year of $7.88 million, but more importantly, our underlying surplus is around break-even, $0.01 million. Our longer-term financial sustainability is still a key concern, and we want to achieve that by 2028-29. So whilst this might look good in 1 year, we've got to consider that ongoing, underlying, long-term financial sustainability, and the budget and recommends that we will also be looking at that long-term financial sustainability by November this year. This budget also sets out the key fees and charges, and as well as our rate revenue, which comes under the state government cap, most importantly. I'd like to heartily endorse the budget.
Thank you, Administrator Benedika. This is a very comprehensive document, and whilst it is an annual budget, a 1-year budget, it does need to be considered in the context of the forward 4-year financial timeframe, and more importantly, though, in the context of our 10-year financial plan. The budget does deliver within the rate cap, the designated state government rate cap of 2.75% for the next financial year. Waste charges, however, are increasing slightly higher than that as a result, largely due to increased fuel prices. Fuel consumption in our waste collection service is obviously a very significant cost base, and we have allowed, based on the experience we're currently experiencing of elevated, particularly diesel prices, we have allowed an allowance in the next financial year to accommodate that. The report does foreshadow that our long-term financial strategy does remain a target for us, and we are committed by 28-29 to ensure that the 10-year financial horizon is an absolutely financially sustainable outlook for us. The current budget does deliver a break-even operating budget, virtually break-even operating budget. It does deliver a $33 million capital works program, which is elevated as a result largely of delivering two very significant construction projects, one being the Yarrawonga multi-sport stadium and the second is the completion of the Yarrawonga library project. So this is a budget which we have been very mindful of the financial cost of living pressures being experienced in the community, and we've attempted to respond to needs and expectations of the community for services and programs, as well as the delivery of major infrastructure whilst operating within a constrained overall revenue environment. Can I congratulate particularly our finance staff for the enormous amount of effort that goes into delivering the annual budget. The annual budget process starts around about Christmas time, and so has been more than 6 months in the making, and there's been a considerable amount of effort by our particularly our finance staff and the broader executive to deliver a very comprehensive and balanced budget that we have before us here tonight. So I'm very happy to be supporting, as the seconder of this motion, the adoption of our annual budget for 26-27. With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.13 is the Goulburn Valley Libraries Limited appointment of director and member representative, and I'd invite our, again, Manager of Governance, Risk and Performance, Amanda Finn, to present this report.
Thank you, Chair Administrator Emerson. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's formal appointment of representatives to the new Goulburn Valley Libraries Limited. Goulburn Valley Libraries currently operates as a regional library corporation under the Local Government Act 1989. However, under the Local Government Act 2020, this structure must be wound up by 1 July 2031. To ensure the continuity of library services across the region, the 3 member councils, being Greater Shepparton City Council, Moira Shire Council and Strathbogie Shire Council, have agreed to transition to a new entity, Goulburn Valley Libraries Limited, a public company limited by guarantee. Council endorsed the Constitution and Library Agreement for the new entity at its meeting on 22nd of October 2025, and to complete the transition, which is anticipated to commence on 1 July 2026, Council is now asked to make the following appointments. Administrator Susan Benediker and Director of Communities Scott Williams as Moira Shire Council's 2 appointed board members in accordance with Clause 18.1 of the Constitution, and Chief Executive Officer Matthew Morgan as Moira Shire Council's member representative in accordance with Clause 15 of the Constitution. There are no budget implications for the 2026-27 financial year, as Council's funding contribution remains unchanged under the current arrangements. The revised funding model will apply from 2027 to 2028, and its financial impact will be reported to Council as part of the budget process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Finn. I'm happy to move that Council Number 1 note that at its meeting of 22 October 2025, Council endorsed the Goulburn Valley Regional Library Corporation Constitution and Library Agreement with the new legal structure and governance arrangements anticipated to commence on 1 July 2026. Number 2, appointed Administrator Susan Benediker and Director Community Scott Williams as Moira Shire Council's appointed board members or directors of Goulburn Valley Libraries Limited in accordance with Clause 18.1 of the Constitution of Goulburn Valley Libraries Limited. And 3, appoint Chief Executive Officer Matthew Morgan as Moira Shire Council's member representative to Goulburn Valley Libraries Limited in accordance with Clause 15 of the Constitution of Goulburn Valley Libraries Limited. Is there a seconder for that motion?
I second that motion.
Thank you, Administrator Benediker. This resolution tonight, if carried, is giving final execution to the new legal arrangements for our library service. Our current library service is constituted under the Local Government Act, but it has a sunset provision, and all library corporations need to move to new legal structures. And very pleased that the Goulburn Valley Regional Library Corporation will move to that new structure on the 1st of July to enable that to occur and to ensure that we have board members and member representatives appointed to enable the constitution from 1 July 2026. This resolution tonight is important to ensure that Moira Shire is represented in the new legal structure. So I'm happy to be supporting these nominations on council's behalf to the new legal structure of our library service. Do you wish to speak as seconder of the motion?
I wish to acknowledge the importance of community libraries right across the Moira Shire, and the fact that we've been able to partner with 2 other councils to develop a comprehensive library service delivered to all of our townships, as well as a mobile library service, is really important, and very important that we continue to contribute at a governance level.
With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 9.1, Moira Shire Community Recovery, January 2026 fire. And I'd invite the Director of Community, Mr. Scott Williams, to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. On the 9th of January 2026, under catastrophic fire conditions, a fast-moving grass fire at Yarrawonga destroyed 25 structures, including 13 residential dwellings. The fire occurred against the backdrop of a state of disaster declared across 18 Victorian local government areas. Council responded by activating its Municipal Emergency Coordination Centre and by establishing an Emergency Relief Centre in Cobram. We then activated our Recovery Information Centre to ensure all affected residents could access timely information support. We provided support to over 200 people over that initial period. Since then, we've established foundations for longer-term recovery. Funding agreements have been finalised, dedicated staffing are now in place, case management and direct community support are actively being delivered, and social connection events and resilience activities are commencing. This report presents a post-event recovery action plan, which was developed in collaboration with the local Recovery Coordination Committee, the state agencies, emergency services, and impacted community members. It formalises our structured approach to supporting the community for the long term, because we know recovery is a long and difficult journey, and the message here is that Council's here to support for that journey. The plan is supported by combined Commonwealth and Victorian government funding, and we do thank both for their funding, which enables us to deliver a locally led and focused program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Is there a motion for this item tonight?
I'd like to move that Council, number 1, note the funding arrangements in place to support recovery activities, comprising the Victorian Common Funding Agreement, Council Support Fund, AGRN 1242, capped at $400,000 GST free, and the Community Recovery Officer and Hubs Program allocation of $775,000 GST free under the Disaster Recovery Funding Arrangements. And number 2, note the post-event recovery action plan as included in attachment 1 and the 6 key recovery priorities.
And I'm happy to second that motion. Do you wish to speak as the mover of the motion?
After an event such as we saw at Yarrawonga, the Director has quite clearly pointed out that recovery takes a long time. This is not just something that happens in the short period of time. And the recovery covers all aspects of personal life and community life, as well as preparing for the next potential disasters. The comprehensive action plan that we've in front of us has been really well put together to consider how the coordination and support occurs, how building resilience takes place, how there is community connection and recognition of what's occurred, the communication and engagement that's really important in terms of clear timely and accessible communication, the preparation and planning, as I mentioned earlier, for future events, and building community capacity so that local community organisations can strengthen their ability to also train, support and be there with community for local initiatives. This is a plan that's been put together in conjunction with all relevant state government agencies, and for 3 months this year we have met regularly with those state government agencies to make sure that we've taken into account their advice and best practice as our plan is being developed. This now lays out a clear pathway for how we can respond to this event and make sure that we've also got some really sound principles in place for the next events that will inevitably come. Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Benedicta. I'm happy to put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 9.2 is Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes of the 21st of May 2026. And again, I'd invite Ms Amanda Finn to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. Administrator Emerson. The purpose of this report is to table the unconfirmed minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 21st of May 2026. The Audit and Risk Committee is an independent advisory committee of council that plays a critical role in supporting good governance, accountability and organisational integrity. Its primary purpose is to provide objective oversight and assurance to council across 4 key areas: financial management, internal and external audit, risk management and compliance. The Audit and Risk Committee met on the 21st of May 2026 and considered a broad range of governance, risk and compliance matters, including but not limited to the OHS Improvement Plan Progress Report, 2 internal audit reports, the Policy Register Report and the Quarterly Budget Review for Q3. The minutes are included as a confidential attachment and have been provided to the administrators separately. Council is asked to receive and note the minutes of the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Finn. I'm happy to move that Council receive and note the unconfirmed minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on 21 May 2026 and included as confidential attachment 1. Is there a seconder for that motion?
I'll second that motion.
This report is self-explanatory, but it is probably just worth highlighting that at section 2 of the report in tonight's agenda, it really does set out the very extensive and comprehensive list of matters that our Audit and Risk Committee considers as part of its meetings. And it is a really important mechanism that Council relies on for assurance from the Audit and Risk Committee, and to see that list of matters being considered, I think gives us great confidence. Do you wish to speak as the seconder of the motion?
I'd also like to say that we're very well served by the independent members of our Audit and Risk Committee. Those independent members hold us to account by asking the questions that we need to be considering and by providing insights into best practice and ways that others are doing it. And I believe that over the period of time that I've sat on the Audit and Risk Committee, we've been really very well served by those independent members, and I'd like to pass my thanks on to them.
With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 9.3 is the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee minutes. Again, if I could invite Ms Finn to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. Administrator Emerson. The purpose of this report is to present the minutes of the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee meeting held on the 20th of May 2026 for noting by Council. The CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee is established under Section 45, subsection 2 of the Local Government Act 2020 and is responsible for assisting Council in CEO performance management matters, including the quarterly and annual monitoring and review of CEO performance against key performance indicators. The minutes are included as a confidential attachment and have been provided to administrators separately. Council is asked to receive and note the minutes of the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Finn. Is there a motion for this item?
I move that Council receive and note the minutes of the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee meeting held on the 20th of May 2026 as included in confidential attachment 1.
And I'll second that motion. Do you wish to speak?
The role of the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee is really important. And as mentioned, it's about the annual monitoring, at the review of the key performance indicators and making sure that things are really well moving along track. And again, we're really, very well served by having an independent chair of that Employment and Remuneration Committee. And I'd like particularly to thank her for her guidance.
Thank you, Administrator Benedika. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Can I now move to item 10 on tonight's agenda, and that is notices of motion. And Ms Finn, are there any notices of motion?
No, Chair, there are no items for items 10, 11, 12 or 13 on the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Finn. That takes us then to public question time. And we have two questions tonight received from Mr Jeff Campbell. And I know Jeff is with us. Jeff, do you want to come to the lectern and to the microphone? Do you wish for us to read your questions, or will you read them, Jeff?
You can read it. If you can read it, Mr Chairman, I haven't got a copy here.
Okay. I'll read both of them because I think the answer will probably cover off both aspects. The first question was, has a traffic count been conducted on both the north-south Old Wilby Road and the east-west Channel Road intersection? And secondly, has council looked at making Channel Road the priority road due to the amount of traffic bypassing Yarrawonga? Jeff, would you like to speak to those two questions?
Not a lot to say. I think it's fairly self-explanatory that I think the amount of, but I don't know. Has there been a survey done on the traffic count done?
I'll invite our Director of Infrastructure, Rachel Gadd, to respond to both your questions. The short answer is yes, there has, but Rachel can expand on that.
And do we know what the figures are?
Rachel.
Thanks, Jeff. So traffic counts have been undertaken at the intersection. I haven't got the data here tonight, but I can provide it to you after the meeting. The data does indicate, though, that the volume of traffic travelling in an east-west direction along Channel Road is similar to that travelling north-south along Old Wilby Road, with the majority of that traffic approaching from the north on Old Wilby Road and turning into Chapel Road, both left and right, if that makes sense to you. So Chapel Road, Channel Road has a wider sealed surface than the Old Wilby Road. And combined with the traffic volumes and the behaviour, these conditions may lead to drivers assuming that Channel Road holds priority at the intersection. So that's something that we're looking into. Channel Road doesn't currently have priority at this intersection. We think it might need to have it. So council's currently undertaking detailed design works and we're reviewing the priority at the intersection as part of that.
Yeah, well, on that, those figures, it probably is about equal, but I can see the east-west traffic increasing for the amount of vehicles that are trying to bypass Yarrawonga. And I think that should be looked at while you do all this upgrade.
Yeah, there's no question that will figure fairly prominently in the upgrade works. I suspect part of the problem is that Google Maps is sending drivers down Channel Road as well, and so we do have the most recent data, as Ms Gadd has indicated, that will be fed into the design options to upgrade that intersection, which, as you're aware, we have received funding for.
I think that whole area from Whites Road onwards, turning off the Murray Valley Highway, should be looked at, and also Botts Road intersection to complement the whole system there.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Thank you.
Can I digress? Just looking at the gavel and base in front of you, does the Yarrawonga Shire's original gavel and base still exist?
We'd have to take that on notice, Jeff, unless someone around the table is able to indicate an answer, but I suspect not. We'll take it on notice, Jeff. Thank you for your questions. Okay, that does bring us to the close of tonight's meeting. There being no further business on tonight's agenda. Can I thank the members of the gallery for joining our meeting here in the Yarrawonga Shire Hall, and to those members of the community who have joined us via the streaming service. We thank you also for joining tonight's council meeting. With that, I will now declare the meeting closed.